sometimes brat play is a lot of fun, but the challenge is the game. My partner will establish a set of rules, and I have the choice to comply or not. And it's that kind of dynamic, that push and pull, that can be really fun. Sometimes it even feels like chess, like kinky chess. You know, who can outmaneuver the other person?
How are you doing?
I'm okay. Well, as you know, I have COVID.
Yeah.
So we're doing things a bit differently this week. I am sadly not with Gregor in our studio.
I have to say, I really miss you. I have been bored all day. I didn't know what to do at work. Just imagine.
Imagine what I'm going through. You're down on the beach in Barcelona, our amazing office. And to be fair, I did make some home-baked cookies. So life isn't all bad.
Okay, but how are you doing COVID-wise?
I'm okay, you know. I had COVID in the summer, so this is my second time round. You can maybe hear it in my voice a bit, but I'm actually okay. It hasn't been at all as bad because I got boosted the week before I got it as well. So it's mainly just tiredness, fatigue, the usual, but nothing worse than a cold.
Yes, I think we're really at a moment where everybody is getting it. I got boosted just the day before yesterday, and I'm really like, oh my god, it's just, like a video game. I hope to escape it, but I think I'll just get it eventually. Especially in Barcelona, where we are based, we have so many cases each day, and clubs are closed, so really, there's not so many possibilities to get it, but still, it's out there.
There's a curfew. So actually, I'm not sure we ever told our listeners where we're based. Actually,
no, yeah. As you know, we work for Fetish.com, and it's a funny story because it started as a German company, but our branch of the company is in Barcelona, in a beautiful office right at the beach, and that's where we are usually working.
So I'm from the UK, as you can probably tell, and Gregor is from Austria, not Germany. There is a difference.
That is a huge difference. Oh my god, yeah.
But we also have a branch in Berlin, and we have a branch in Shanghai.
Yeah.
So anyway, we thought it was worth mentioning my COVID positivity, I should say, because you might hear something different in the sound because we're not in the studio together and the mic is not with me, it's only with Gregor.
Yeah. And also this is why this episode of the podcast is a bit delayed, but it's still nice to record this with you, even though we're apart.
So without further ado, let's get into it. This is Spank U next.
Welcome back.
This is episode 4.
I think it's episode 4. We had the special episode, a special Christmas episode. It's really worth a listen, you out there. And this is now episode 4. And just before we get into it, we want to do a little shout out to our listeners in Oldenburg in Germany. We just saw in the statistics that this is the city where most of our listeners come from, which is really curious.
Yeah, we're loving this. If you are from there and you are listening, message us on Instagram or reach out and tell us why you love it, but also maybe there's a community there, a fetish scene, a BDSM scene that we should be connecting with, and maybe we'll do a little trip or something.
Yeah, exactly, and let us know what brought you to BDSM.
Yeah, as we know, Germany is a hub.
Germany is definitely a hub, yeah. It's our hub.
It's very specific. Is it a city, Gregor? I'm not so
Yeah, Oldenburg, it's a city, yeah.
Cool. Well, everyone thinks Berlin, but step aside.
See, I just thought it's nice that you mentioned I'm Austrian, not German, and then I still get the German-related question while you are from the UK. So basically, I think you're even the same distance from this city because it's in the north of Germany. Hey,
would you ask me Irish stuff over?
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
They don't like that either. They don't like to be lumped in with the British. So yeah, this episode's guest is Dr. Selena Criss. And she is an absolute fountain of knowledge. And when I say that, she's actually a doctor. She has a PhD in human sexuality. She's a sexologist. And she currently has a course on the BDSM training school all about BDSM bratting.
Yeah, she's a real treasure. And so we will hit off the interview talking about brats. And for those who don't know it, brats are very special types of subs. It's when you when you like to bottom in a BDSM scenario, but you might question what your dom tells you.
Yeah, there's some submissives obviously who total subservience really gets them off, and maybe that's more represented in society. People see that more often, but BDSM brats like pushing the buttons because they actually crave that punishment. You know, that spanking or that telling off. So that's the titillation.
Yeah. They really test their dom, how far they can take it. And this can lead to a lot of frustration from the dom side.
Yeah, I can imagine. I think it would take a specific type of dom to want to be in a relationship with a brat. But as Selena Criss and Lola Jean on episode 1 said, brats get a bad rep. They're misunderstood.
They're so misunderstood. But yeah, we want to stop that. So that's why we're talking to Selena Criss about that. And we'll get into the aspect of bratting, we'll get into the aspect of communication between the bratty sub and the dom, and how you can just make it work for you.
And as Selena is a sex coach, she works a lot with parents about sex-positive parenting, which is a concept maybe a lot of us struggle to get our head around. And we discuss in the podcast that often when we talk to kids, or when we're kids, when our parents talk to us about sex, it's very sanitized. Nothing about pleasure, nothing about preparing you for the actual indulgence into your sexuality. And we get really into that about halfway through.
I mean, my parents, they just didn't have the tools to talk to me about sex. You know, they didn't know how, and it was really horrible. It was a bad experience, I think, for me and for them. Yeah, kind of, because it was just
really?
awkward. It was really awkward.
Yeah. I think it's always awkward, but I think there's a way to do it that was maybe better than our parents did. No offense to them. Love them. They tried in the way they could. And I'm not sure, as someone that doesn't have a child, how much better I would be, because I think we find the whole topic a bit...
Yeah, Selena Criss, though, she's a mom, so she knows, and she's a sex coach, so she really kind of gives us some tips on how to approach this topic in a very open and loving way.
Also that she has a nesting co-parent relationship with someone she lives with, but she is also poly or consensually non-monogamous, and she has a BDSM partner who she plays with outside the home. So we talk about poly and jealousy and sitting with those emotions when they come up, and how to do it in a way that works for everyone involved.
Yeah, I mean, I think that sums up the episode quite beautifully, so maybe let's just jump in.
Sure, let's wait no more, as you would say. Selena Criss, Dr. Selena Criss, welcome to the podcast. We're super happy to have you here.
I'm super happy to be here.
Let's dive into your work. You are a professional sex coach. You're a sex historian. You're also a BDSM practitioner and enthusiast. You're a BDSM brat as well. So there's lots there to unpack. But let's start with the sex coaching, how you came to this line of work.
The short version of this story is I was talking with a career coach. I'd been an elementary school teacher for many moons. And I was talking to a coach, and at some point I was like, you know, it would be so cool to do what you're doing with me, but to do it around human sexuality. And the coach I was talking to me was like, yeah, that would be really cool. And maybe it's a thing. And so I started Googling, and I found Sex Coach U, which is Dr. Patty Britton's project. So this was 2011, and I got signed up with them, and it was just like coming home and finding my people.
See, that was Sex Coach U, and you signed up as a student first.
Yes, I signed up as a student because like, oh, this is cool. So what they did, Patty Britton, she took the what of sexology, and she put it together with the how of life coaching. And merging these two things created this new modality. So there's a lot of different things out there that got called sex coaching, but this thing that she created was at that time very unique. It was serendipity, really, to fall into this and to find the school at the time that I did, and to get started with them and to do the training there. And it's just really developed into my career, because now I work with them also. I'm the curriculum director at Sex Coach U, and I'm one of the student advisors. So I train people to go out into the world and do this work.
I love that it's being taken so seriously as a practice and profession. And the way that you said that you kind of merge teaching that maybe you get in school and then coaching with the importance of sexuality. And maybe if we had more access to it, we wouldn't all get our sex education from porn.
Yeah, this is actually something we talk about a lot in this podcast because sex education, it's bad in school when you get it in school. There's so much missing and it's so one-dimensional, and you really dived in there. So how come that you later then studied and even got a PhD?
PhD in human sexuality, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, my PhD's in human sexuality. I did that at the Institute for Advanced Study of Human Sexuality in San Francisco. And that school was really revolutionary. It was like this little pocket in time. It doesn't exist anymore. But the conversation that they established around humanistic sexuality and sexology is really, it was unique. I think it still is unique because what we studied there is human sexual behavior. So what people do sexually and how they think and feel about it. So there's no diagnosis. It's not about what's wrong in your head or, what's not working inside your body. It's just really what turns you on and how do you go about doing it? Tell me about you. And there's this real celebration of the uniqueness, the individuality, and the diversity of what people get up to when they have sex. Because like what we get from sex ed is such a narrow definition, it's like smushing genitals together, but sex is so much more than that. I think it's been a really exciting perspective to have.
Let's speak a bit more about Fetish.com because you have a course on the BDSM training school and you talk about brats. And I think you're a brat yourself. And we have loads of questions on that. So could you maybe start off explaining what is a brat?
Okay, so first, for a little context, I need to give you a little bit of framing. So I tend to eschew just having the label on all the time. It's more like, on occasion, when I play, I like to engage in brat play. But like in this moment right now, I'm not a brat. I'm not bratting. I'm having this conversation with you guys. But when my partner and I agree to, when we're playing, sometimes brat play is a lot of fun. And for us, what that's about is the challenge is the game. Like my partner will establish a set of rules or make a predicament or something, and I have the choice to comply or not. And it's that kind of dynamic, that push and pull, that can be really fun. Sometimes it even feels like chess, like kinky chess. Who can outmaneuver the other person? And that's a lot of fun. But I think brat play, it can be defined so differently. I mean, you're going to get a different answer from every person who engages in this. Some people will talk about wanting to earn their spankings, and another person might have more of an age play element to it. They're expressing a younger self sort of attitude. So I think brat play can really incorporate all of that. But I think the essentials are really around what you agree with your partner and how you choose to engage in it. And it's really a playful approach.
So what distinguishes a submissive that is more into obedience serving to a brat? Because it is an element of submission. And I think this is when some people that are listening might not actually know what brat play itself is.
Okay, so sometimes you hear brats being described as like just a naughty sub, which I think is so dismissive. Because I think it's distinct to that.
Getting a hard rap.
And they get a hard rap. These are highly intelligent and very misunderstood creatures.
I don't doubt it for a second.
I think it really depends on what the agreements are between the partners. If you have a DS dynamic where there's a very clear set of rules and a protocol and an expectation, and if it involves something like service, or if it involves something like, I don't know, I'm just imagining a very strict kind of ritualized thing. Are there opportunities for naughtiness? Yes, of course. Is that the same as bratty? Maybe. But I think you have to ask the people who are engaged in that, and where is the tolerance? Is the sub not complying because they're trying to provoke a certain reaction, or have they failed in their duties? I mean, that's all a matter of perspective.
Would you say it's maybe adding an extra element of playfulness to it?
I think so. I think bratting at its heart is playful. And that's like the distinction. I mean, so yeah, you could call it naughtiness, but that also can have playfulness. And it's like deliberate, you know, and I think that's also a thing. It's not like just failing to continue to hold the tray or whatever. It's like saying, you know, I don't want to hold this anymore. Blah. And I know that I'm going to get spanked if I drop it. Like,
yeah. So you're actually almost willing the punishment that you might desire as well. So you're actually controlling a lot of the cards.
I really think of it as having more of being willing to challenge that power dynamic. And if both partners agree that this is part of fun, like, I'm going to try to tame you, and like, yeah, I'm going to challenge the shit out of you. Well, can I say that?
Yes.
Of course you can.
Cool.
Oh, really? Yeah.
I'm going to challenge you, you know, and like, that's fun. If both people agree, like, this is going to be fun, and part of what our play today is going to be about, there's a power imbalance, but it's not going to stay constant. We're going to have something of a struggle here. And that's part of what the kick is.
You said before that you might not always engage in a brat dynamic, but when you do, you talk about it beforehand. So is this something, can we imagine this as, you know, you might have a dominant submissive dynamic going on, and then you decide today, I want to engage in this kind of play?
Yeah, but I really believe that before the scenes, we should kind of talk about what we're creating today, you know, because we agree to create this experience together. We can't necessarily predict the outcome. We can have a goal, but, you know, it's about the journey, not the destination, right? And so, at least in my experience with the partners that I've played with, nobody appreciates surprise bratting, you know, because they think that we're having this kind of dynamic, and then all of a sudden out of left field comes, you know, this tongue sticking out or whatever. And there can be a lot of miscommunication because one person goes, no, I don't want to do that, and then gets smacked. And it's like, wait a minute, I didn't agree to being smacked.
Oh, yeah, I can
You know,
see that. I can see that snowballing into a bad situation, actually.
Yeah, that can be really, really bad. So bratting, I think, really asks us to be conscious and to say, hey, today I have this energy inside of me. I really want to challenge everything. I'm standing in like a big fuck you to everything. Are you down for playing with that? And if the partner says, yeah, game on, because I'm feeling really mighty and I want to just dom in really big ways, and I want a challenge, I need something to dig my teeth into, I want to do this, then it can be really exciting. But if that energy isn't there, it can be really annoying and go badly.
I have a question about the gendered aspect of bratting, just because I think language is such a signifier of so many things. And I wonder if, in your experience, do you think it's a more of a female thing to be a brat? Because I kind of associate the word brat with something that would be feminized.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I hadn't thought about that before, but if I think about the people who I've talked to who readily say, yeah, I'm a brat, it has been more women people. But that's not a hard and fast thing. I've also known menfolk who will claim it. But if there's a common thread, it's this playfulness, and this willing to just sort of challenge the dynamic, challenge the status quo, challenge in a playful way. But the responsibility is to really be clear about what you're up to and to have a negotiation about it.
What? Sorry. You go.
Is there anything that DOMs should know when they're playing with brats?
Approach it like chess and try to think a couple steps ahead. You know, keep your options. That's where I see the most frustration happen, is when they've run out of options and they're like, wait a minute, what do I do now? If you're playing with someone who's trying to outsmart you, you got to be thinking ahead. And then also be ready, you know, to do that thing that you threatened. So, you know, you can't threaten longer than your whip actually is.
Why do you think BDSM is such a powerful tool in not just in sex and pleasure and playfulness, but that you also advocate it in coaching? But why for you is it such a powerful tool?
I think BDSM opens the door. It's an opportunity for so many things, so many explorations. I think the practice itself asks participants to own their pleasure, to own their desire, and to be able to communicate it authentically to a partner. And when we do that, we increase our agency, but we also increase our potential for pleasure because, it's out there. And we've said to our partner, okay, this is what turns me on. This is what's exciting to me. This is what I want to try. And they say the same to us. And we notice all the places where we connect. And it's like, oh, cool. These are the things that we could do. And then you can try it. And you can try one thing one day and a different thing the next day. I think it's very freeing. There's a lot of freedom in BDSM. And there's also a lot of, I guess we could almost call it mindfulness or intention about what we're doing. I did a podcast recently with Dr. Patty about sex and aging, and she was asking me a similar question, like, what are the opportunities of BDSM for couples who are older? And one of the things that we talked about there that I think is interesting that I've noticed among players of different ages is that it incorporates so much more of our bodies. Again, it's not just about genitals smooshing together, but, deliberate playing with dynamics of power or the deliberate playing with sensations and intense sensations. So suddenly we're engaging the body and the mind. And, toys are awesome, Kinksters love their toys, right? So if you need to bring in a dildo or a vibrator or a whip or a whatever to be part of your sex play, it's like totally normal and becomes an extension of yourself when you're doing things with your partner. So, it can alleviate some concerns.
I really like this because once I talked to a guy who was really into fisting, and he said the great thing about fisting is that everybody can be a top.
Yeah.
And I had never thought about it that way. Yeah. And I think it's the same thing because so many times our idea of sex is so narrow. And with that, and also especially communicating about it, you can just open it up to so much more.
Yeah, I think communication is really key here, actually, because I think people in BDSM relationships, particularly, communicate far more than the average vanilla relationship. Because I know there's a lot of things people see or misconceptions about BDSM, and they think it's not for me, it's too extreme, it will hurt, all the concerns that maybe someone would have outside the scene. But really, it's about the dialogue before. It's about checking in. It's about saying what I will do and what I won't do. And how many people having, vanilla sex, or especially in hetero relationships where the gender dynamic is split as well. How many people are checking in? How many people are actually saying if they like it or not?
Right. Or how many people are giving feedback saying, more. I need this. Or safe wording. Like, whoa, this is too much for me now.
Exactly. And I think consent becomes really blurred as well, because you may not feel totally violated, but you might feel, actually, I really didn't like that, but I didn't feel like I could say it.
Exactly, because how many people stay in a situation because they think they're supposed to like it?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Deep
conversations here. Yeah. Dr. Selina, you are also a parent. So how does that get together? You're a sex coach, you're kind of really sex positive, you engage into BDSM scene, and you're an educator. How does that affect your parenting?
It's definitely had an impact. I notice I have conversations with my kids and my parents were sex positive. I actually got a pretty decent start in life in that regard. But yeah, I've just been talking with my kids about their bodies and their pleasure, and like it's normal, like it's a normal part of life. But then again, I'm a sexologist, I have these conversations all day, every day. But when I teach sex ed for parents, this is what I teach also, is just to have those conversations, to be affirming of the goodness of the body and the goodness of feelings and pleasure. And to, from the get-go, to start affirming that and say, that feels good, isn't it great? Kind of thing. And to establish those conversations, and then as your child grows, your topics will evolve, the things that you talk about with them. And if you can establish yourself at an early age, at your child's early age, as the go-to person, when they get into their teen years, hopefully, if it's gone well and you have a good relationship with your kids, like we all hope we do, then they will come to you when, they're having concerns or questions or things like that. I think even in how we handle things like puberty, it makes a difference. How can we make this a wonderful time, like celebrate this developmental step the same way we do when they learn how to walk and talk and feed themselves.
I think so many of us really never spoke to our parents about sex, and then there comes this one moment in puberty where every parent feels they have to have a conversation, and it's uncomfortable for everyone involved.
I think it's really interesting what you say as well, because we get this sanitized, maybe like you say, one conversation. My father actually called it the birds and the bees, and it was a 2-minute conversation in the car. I feel like he needed that to feel like he'd actually done some sex education parenting. Shout out to my dad. He's not going to listen to this podcast. But do you know what's never talked about is pleasure? And that's why it's really interesting that you say that you actually talk about how it feels good. We just get the medical penis, vagina, or penis, whatever it is. We don't get the pleasure aspect of it. It's just, this is what happens. You will get pregnant and die. And
Right, I got that too. Don't do it until you're married or else.
Exactly. Like in Mean Girls,
you will get pregnant,
you will die.
Yes. Yeah, sex is a death sentence. It's hardly sex positive, right?
So it's not celebrated from, I think, in a lot of parent-child dynamics or parent-teenager. It's more a warning, or it's that, stay safe. It's not go and enjoy it and experiment.
Right. No, but if we can shift the conversation from don't do it, you're going to die, to emphasizing the pleasure and emphasizing mutual pleasure, that by itself is going to resolve so many things. I can't tell you how many hours are spent in therapists and coaching offices undoing childhood conversations around sex and reaffirming, like, your body is good, your pleasure is yours. Nobody else gets to decide what feels good to you. You know what's happening in your body. You know what feels good to you. And so yeah, if we can have those conversations with our kids, that just helps them later to have the respectful, consensual, wonderful interactions that we want them to have. But that's also another thing, is parents have to get their head around just the fact that their children are sexual beings, and they're going to be sexual beings, and it just is that way.
That's a tough thing for a lot of parents, I imagine.
Yeah, the same way it's difficult for children to imagine that their parents are sexual beings. Yeah.
But maybe that's
so are our grandmas and grandpas.
Yeah.
So are grandmas and grandpas. True. Yeah. I think we're all just, I think there's an element where people just think it's a bit icky, and I don't know, they can't put their finger on why it's gross, because we all know it's natural. I do it, they should do it. It's actually the mark of a healthy relationship. So how do we undo this kind of shame and ickiness? I can't think of another word for it.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean. It does always have this icky baggage, doesn't it? But I think a lot of that is based in, if we think in generations, right? What did our parents learn about sex when they were younger? And what did their parents learn? And what did their parents learn and teach them? It gets really dark really, really fast, right? So we got to figure that our parents did the best they knew how. And they probably were already, friendlier than their parents were, right?
Yeah, for sure.
For sure. Yeah, Catholics, I mean, come on.
Yes. I grew up Catholic. I remember family life at school. And I mean, they did give us a pretty medically accurate description, but there was also the factor that you're going to die.
Yeah.
I think that was definitely part of it.
Honestly, I went to a Catholic school, and instead of a sex education video, it was just a baby being born. And at the end, the priest said, "This is what happens if you have sex. So if you're not ready, don't do it."
Oh my God, I had no idea that you went to Catholic school.
Oh, did you not?
No idea.
Yes.
So,
It's been many years of therapy on doing that.
oh yeah, I can imagine. One thing that might actually be interesting for all the parents listening, how do you combine your sexual and your kinky life with being a parent? Has that changed, and how did you manage that change?
Well, I think as far as any parent having sex, right, you got to figure out a way to do it and also be a parent at the same time. It's not like we become parents and all of a sudden we turn it off. So, whether it's kinky sex or vanilla sex, which is also wonderful, vanilla is a delicious flavor. We all have to find that time and that space and figure out how to establish that boundary. Like, maybe you only do it at night with a lock on the door, and you hope that that's not the night your kid has a nightmare. Or, I've known people when their kids are really, really little, let them watch cartoons and like, oh, cool, they're parked for 20 minutes. Let's go have some quiet fun over here, right? And we'll be alone for a little bit. Babysitters are fantastic. Meeting your spouse in a hotel room can be a lot of fun. Can have some role play. If you have that resource of either having a babysitter or having family that you can leave your kid with. But as far as doing the kinky stuff, for me in my personal practice, I've typically done it somewhere else anyway. So my partners for that have been outside of my co-parenting nesting partner relationship. And so since that was always an outside activity, that never changed.
You just mentioned your co-parent nesting partner, and I think you need to explain that to our audience.
Okay, so I am poly. Again, always eschewing the labels, but I guess to best explain that, my spouse is my nesting partner, meaning we live together, and we are co-parents, meaning we share children together. So our domestic relationship is very loving, very nurturing. I'm not going into the details of like the intimate sex bits, but there is a loving, nurturing, cohabitating, domestic, parenting, family unit that happens here. But because of just the way we've evolved, the way our relationships are, things I like to do, things he likes to do, there is room for other adventures, we'll say. And so my primary partner outside is also a very significant relationship in my life. And there's commitment, there's also fidelity, there's agreements around what we do together. And that is my BDSM relationship. And so that's where I do a lot of these other things, like engaging in my fetish play, engaging in the brat play, engaging in S&M or DS or whatever it is that day, because it does change.
And now, how do you explain something like this to your kids? Is this something you talk about with your kids?
Not really.
Okay.
This is one of these things where if they ask, I answer. But I don't necessarily flash it at them. I mean, do they need to know?
Exactly. I know. Is there a need to talk about it?
Yeah, I was just thinking, if this person is a significant partner, is there ever a want to introduce your domestic life to that relationship, or is it totally separate?
Oh, no. Everybody knows each other. So, cool. But again, these details are not interesting to anybody.
No. And it's definitely not anybody's business here. But as we just
no, I mean, just not even here, like, as far as the kids are concerned. Like,
Yeah.
They don't care.
Yeah, exactly.
Mom's buddy.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so some people call this kind of consensual non-monogamy. And I think that you refer to it as that on your website as well. Is it something you're seeing that's getting more popular? More people are coming to you with the idea of maybe opening up the relationship?
I think it's always been around. I think what's become more popular is the discussion about it and the public acknowledgement of these relationship dynamics. And I think it's possible that more people are trying it because it's getting normalized inside of society and culture, where there's more examples of it out in the world. So,
there's even a Netflix show. Have you seen? It's called You, Me, Her. I watched it. I watched all seasons. Not gonna lie.
Oh, have you seen it? Was it good?
It's not great, no, but it's watchable and it's
I've
fun.
watched all seasons. It's not great.
But yeah, it's basically about a couple. They're living this domestic life in Portland. I think Portland's like a very poly capital, and they meet this woman and they open up their relationship. It's kind of the trials and tribulations. I'm not super sure if it's an accurate portrayal. It's Netflix, but it's fun.
If there's anything I've noticed, it's that there's not one way to do any of this. You know, one person's kink practice is, you know, maybe similar, but could be wildly different from another person's. And the same goes for consensual non-monogamy. And there are kind of broad categories of it. But, I mean, if you want some entertainment, ask a poly meetup about definitions, like, how would you, you know, I mean, because some will give you these amazing tree diagrams, or some people will say, no, it's not a tree, it's a polycule. And others are like, no, it's all about the V, and this is this person's a hinge. I mean, you will get as much variety in language as the people that you ask. So.
Heavy theory.
So how do you manage feelings of jealousy in a non-monogamous relationship?
Yeah, because we've discussed this because
we talk about
this a lot because obviously in our community there's a lot of poly people, we have friends who are poly, but I think for me it would be just a massive headache.
Yeah, for me it's really hard to imagine, so it's also, that's why I'm asking, because I'm really curious for myself.
Oh, I find my greatest struggle is time management. Honestly.
Oh gosh, yeah. I can barely keep up as it is.
Like, the time is what kills me, but as far as jealousy goes, my default is always to go and see what's happening with my partner, to acknowledge their feelings, ask them for more, and try to get what's the root of the problem. You know, where is the upset, and try to address that. Or if it's the case that I'm the person who's upset, to try to sit with it and get really clear about what is it that is bothering me. And then, to the best of my ability, communicate it to my partner. It sounds really neat and simple when I say it. It's not. It's often messy, because we're still humans. In fact, I was saying to one of my colleagues the other day, like, it can be so frustrating to have the knowledge and the perceived skill set of doing the work that we do. And then when the rubber hits the road, you know, in the relationship with my partner, some days it's like, it would be easier if I didn't know this stuff.
Yeah.
Because then maybe I wouldn't feel like such a total failure. Because, you know, I know the best practices and they're doing me no good right now in this moment.
That's the thing, high expectations. But also, like you say, isn't it human? Like, isn't jealousy and these feelings just come up sometimes? But I think what it is you have to be super reflective. Maybe me and Gregor are just not reflective people. Because I don't like sitting with it. I just want to act.
Exactly, yeah.
But
seems like
I'm
not on that level of self at the moment.
That's an interesting one. Do you think that it's something that people like us that think, oh, it'd be such a challenge, or it's not for me? We actually could find ways that would work for us with the right tools, coaching, etc.
Boundaries.
Well, you mentioned boundaries. Boundaries are essential. Boundaries are so essential.
It's my favorite topic lately.
Right? I mean, everything from, I don't know, deciding what to eat for dinner to having the kinky sex. Boundaries. Boundaries are amazing. But yeah, I think we all have to give ourselves a little room to be human, a little bit of grace, to be human, a little bit of love, again, for our partners, for ourselves, for being these emotional beings and bodies. That's really what we are, hey?
Yeah, I guess a lot of it is also kind of having this emotional stamina of maybe not judging a feeling when it comes up, but just sit with it and ask yourself, where does that come from?
But also the willingness to feel the feeling. It's not about the jealousy comes up and we have to make it wrong and push it away and say, no, I'm enjoying compersion now. I'm compersioning. This is me compersioning, right? You know, it's it's okay to feel jealous and to look at, like, okay, well, what is it? Is it about the time that they're spending together? Or is it the attention? Or is it I don't know, why haven't you made me cookies? Like, I see you're making cookies for someone else. I want a cookie. I don't know.
Oh, that would annoy me.
That
would totally get me too.
Big fight.
Yeah,
big fight.
No, I think that's true. I think we're always told that we should feel good all the time. And this is actually a problem in wider society that people are told, oh, isn't life great, spark joy and all that stuff? What if you just feel like crap? And you can sit with it and you can sit with jealousy. But we're always told that we need to be the best versions of ourselves. And maybe this is a problem.
I think it's unreal, honestly. Like, really, who has the stamina to do that? And, like, even Mother Teresa, I'm sure, had bad days. I am sure there were days she woke up and was just like, no.
It's not my day. Yeah.
Times were tough back then.
I mean, and who knows? I mean, if she was here and we could ask her, I'm sure she would tell us, we know, whatever her method was for working through that moment. But, yeah, we can each take a minute to feel funky and then decide what to do with it.
Oh, wow. Yeah. You know what, I actually think that's good life lessons in general.
Yeah, we got really into the therapy now.
Yeah.
Oh, good. Like it.
I love it. So why don't you tell people where they can find you?
Sure. They can find me on Fetish.com with the brat course. And my website is delightfulmischief.com. Probably easiest to include a link to that in the description. And my email is selina@delightfulmischief.com. And email's the best way to reach me. I do have Facebook, but I almost never check it.
Perfect.
So I'm
do
going
you
to be
do
really, really clear about that.
Perfect. Do you do online sessions?
Yeah, most of my work is virtual right now.
Okay.
And I like it. It's good.
Yeah, for everybody listening, just check out Dr. Celina's website. It's really good, and then you can get a more in-depth idea of what she does and the kind of sex coaching she could help you with.
And thank you so much for having
Dr.
me.
Celina,
Thank you
so much.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming on. It's been very exciting to have you on, and we'll catch you on Fetish.com.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Okay, so that was Selena Chris. What did you think about that, Gregor?
I hope if I ever become a dad, that I kind of find a more natural way of talking to my kids about sex. Not at a very early age, but at some point.
I know, I feel like our parents got a bit of a trashing, and it's not because they didn't try and we don't love them. It's because it's a difficult topic to approach and it's awkward. So I'd like to think we'd be better, but I'm still not convinced I would.
No, that's also why I won't have kids. So yeah, easy, the easy way out. That is
the easy option. Also, the best thing you could do for the planet. You can eat all the meat you want. Exactly. That just cancels it out.
From a climate perspective.
Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah.
And not having to have that awkward conversation.
No, but I really like Celina Criss. I think she's so sweet. I don't know if you heard that, but during the interview, Anna and I kind of sounded a bit like, over excited all the time. And Celina Criss is just super calm. And I just love that about her.
She's really worked on herself. Maybe that's the difference.
Maybe that's what we should do.
Maybe we should be less neurotic and more like Selena.
Yeah, totally. Okay.
Anyway, let's talk about next episode, which I'm really excited about because we actually had a really long conversation with two members who met on Fetish.com, one daddy and one little, which I guess is a dynamic a lot of people will know about outside the scene, sort of the idea of daddy, but in the community now we try to call it caregiver and little to stop that kind of gender aspect.
I think it's a dynamic a lot of people have some idea about, but they don't really know what it means. And I think that's why it's so important that we talk about it and that we have these two members of Fetish.com here on the podcast.
Yeah, and I also think it's one that gets a bad name. And I'm not going to lie, in some ways I thought before I had this conversation, it's not really for me, this whole age play thing. But they're so in love and so caring. They're just great.
Yeah, I mean, I'm also not a fan of age play, but after speaking with them, I definitely have a different perspective on it. And by the way, speaking of age play, if this is something you're into or you want to find out what you're into, you can now take a BDSM personality quiz on Fetish.com. I think that's a new feature we're having.
It is, and it's really taken off. Everyone wants to know all about their BDSM kinky selves, so you can find out how much of a rope bunny you are, or rigger, how much of a dom or sub, or how much of a daddy. No, actually we don't call it daddy. How much of a caregiver or a little. It's really interesting, and then it also helps you find perfect play partners that you match with.
So we might talk a bit more about these BDSM personalities in our next episode, and until then, keep it kinky.
Keep it kinky.
If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe to Spank U Next on Spotify, Apple, or wherever you get your podcasts. You can also follow us on Instagram at Spank U Next Podcast.
If you're looking to connect with people who share your kinks, sign up to Fetish.com for free or download the Fet app from Google Play and the App Store.
And for anyone looking to deepen their knowledge of kink, head to the BDSM training school on Fetish.com and enroll in a course now.
And last but not least, shout out to our producer Tim Smith.